Hello, welcome to the PLM 2021 virtual conference. We've got an exciting panel with us today discussing creating value with a BOM-Centric foundation for the digital thread. I am Jeff Zemsky, a director of product management in the Windchill organization at PTC. We've got a great set of customers joining us for this panel discussion, including Kim Cook, IT leader with Steelcase, John Archer, Director of Product Management, and Jeff Thornton, IT Manager with Johnson & Johnson, John Matson, Engineering Manager with Toro, and Eric Horn, PLM Solution Architect with Solar Turbines. So as many of us know, PLM has become a strategic enterprise-wide software. There's a growing need across the enterprise, whether it's service, manufacturing, customers, or operations, to access the data on a global basis and make this information available not to just PLM, but broadly across the enterprise. But many people start with the beginning of how do we actually get on that journey? How do we make that information available? In today's panel, we've got this great group that's going to discuss how they started with a BOM-Centric foundation to take the information from the engineers and designers and deliver that to the enterprise, leveraging methodologies like multidiscipline product structures, electronics, software, mechanical, a complete bill of material with visualization, doing BOM transformation, enabling downstream manufacturing and process planning, and keeping that all together in robust change management governance. So without further ado, let's start talking and hearing from some of these people on these great stories. So let's start with Steelcase. Kim, Steelcase has been analyzing how to better serve the enterprise, delivering improved product development and better use of information. Would you describe where that journey is, please?
Sure, Jeff. Thank you very much. And thank you for the panel for having me. As most of you know, Steelcase is an SAP shop. We have a 25-year history with SAP, and we will be undergoing a migration to S4 over the next couple of years. And one thing that we really want to do with our SAP suite, we have over 6,000 customized programs that came to us over the last 25 years. And we have about 4,000 custom transactions. So one of our primary goals is to reduce that customization. We have product configurations. You can choose about 50 plus quadrillion product variants from our products across everything that Steelcase produces. And that is the challenge to manage as well. So how do we reduce that product data complexity? Last year, we worked with a company called Celonis, and they actually analyzed data and data flow for us within Windchill and within SAP. And we find that the rework, the multiple revisions over and over again have really caused us delays in our first order entry, and about 6,800 hours of additional work related to rework that causes delayed time to market and everything. So another one of our goals was to really reduce that rework and time to market. And as we looked at this flow of data within Celonis, how many times it was revisited and reworked, we also thought of the history of the Chicago River. And if you haven't researched that, it's an interesting story where in the 1800s, they actually did change the flow of the Chicago River to help with some environmental situations. So our whole future state project is geared around that, changing the flow of the product data. So during this discussion and research, there were a lot of things that we had to think about. Steelcase has the ERP system. We also have what's known as the product information management system. That's more of a customer-facing data environment. And then we have our PLM platform, which is, of course, Windchill. So you can imagine in-house, we had many debates about where should data be authored and mastered, and who should author that data, and where should it be authored first. So we partnered with PTC on many discussions and brainstorming, looking to PTC and other vendors for some guidance and best practice about where specific elements of data should be authored. And I know this is a busy slide that's coming up here. Hopefully there's two halves to it. There we go. So on the right or the left side of the screen, we show our current state here. And much of our business is driven by a statement of line that is generated off from many complicated spreadsheets. And then data from that spreadsheet is fed directly into our ERP system. Some comes into the Windchill environment, but it's kind of backwards. So we would, again, like to change the flow of that and start with our engineering data. And we put a lot of time and research and looking at options and variants. And again, working with PTC, we have listed out where we believe certain elements should be mastered. So now our future state, our story of our future state actually starts with much of the data mastered in the PLM or in Windchill in the earlier engineering phases of that product development. And then that data would be shared, replicated, reused in both the PIM, that product information management system, and down into the ERP, so that the ERP becomes a much lighter weight consumer platform of data than it is today, driving our data. So I felt like over the last year, we've just had amazing support from both our business leaders and our IT leaders in making this huge transformation. And this is just one step in a difficult journey to that digital transformation. Jeff, I'll turn that back to you.
All right, Kim, thank you so much. And it's really fascinating to see that this is not only about technology, but about the business thinking about how to gain the best value for its needs across all of its systems to bring to the users. So thank you so much. So let's move on to Johnson and Johnson. So John and Jeff, you've told me Johnson and Johnson has been implementing change management. Can you elaborate on that journey and what it has brought to the business?
Yeah, thanks, Jeff. And by the way, thanks for the promotion you gave me too. I'm actually just a senior manager with the business analyst at Johnson & Johnson. So we're on our journey of implementing Windchill. So Johnson & Johnson, as most people know, is a very large company, which we have a lot of organic growth within our company, but we also grow by acquisition. And when we're acquiring companies through acquisition, that means that we have additional needs to integrate them into the Johnson & Johnson infrastructure. So we are continuing our journey of transforming many of our operating companies into Windchill PLM. Now, when we do those transitions, we look very closely at how we use out-of-the-box capabilities instead of customization. So we look very closely at what Windchill can provide out of the box. As part of that, we look at how the linkages between the objects within the PLM system can be built, right, to suture together to develop that digital thread of information. So one example is the flexible links that you can generate in the change process. We have taken full opportunity around utilizing those flexible links to build out our change objects. Now, the digital thread, we use a multiple tenants of CAD data management. part configuration management, and document management. Those are our three pillars of what we're trying to control within the Windchill space. And overreaching on that is the change control process. So we have a very robust end-to-end change control process that manages all three of those objects, right? So we've now got all that content into a single system where we've digitized that data. We've digitalized that data where we've created workflows and processes that support that digital, and it's supported based on the fact that we're using that digital thread. So some of the value that we've realized out of that is one large thing is our cycle time of changes has reduced by 50%. And also by having our data in a single system, it actually helps reduce our risk because we're not having to go across disparate systems to find the information and do things like impact analysis where we're making changes. Overall, that helps our quality of our products. And in the end, since we're using the change process to drive our release of the products into the market, it's also accelerating our time to market or reducing our time to market. I'd like to hand it over to Jeff Thornton to talk about our opportunities and our guidance to those who would be continuing on their journey to do the digital thread.
Yep. Thanks, John. From a technology perspective, I'd like to share a few things to keep in mind. We're very focused on future-proofing our solutions, really driving adoption of the latest standard capabilities. That's given us solutions that are both flexible and long-lasting. So it's really important for your technology teams to continuously explore those new capabilities, the new latest ways to do things in both Windchill and ThingWorx. Better yet, get involved in those working groups. You heard earlier about getting guidance from PTC where you have specialized cases. Those can really better inform your solution decisions and influence also what's coming from PTC. So we work in a scaled agile framework. It provides a structured approach for that continuous exploration that really paves the way for our architecture. As John also noted, in terms of driving part and BOM management capabilities, that's critical for your digital thread and the benefits. From a technology perspective, you want to consider how those transitions can occur over time within your system rather than as a prerequisite as part of data migration. So our capability plans are often working to account for a dual maturity to support transitions to that higher maturity, more data-centric approaches over time without requiring a big bang. So make sure you're fully assessing all of those use cases, not just the future state, but the transition processes. Another area of advice is focused on automating metrics within your system as part of realizing value. Regarding change management, we invested a lot in cycle time reports, dashboards, alerts, having them ready at the launch. Those are really going to support your continuous improvement of both the system and the business processes. I'd advise to take a look at more than just total cycle time, but time and phase, reasons for rework. Again, lots of interesting insights that can help you track adoption and also identify other potential improvements. So, plan for more change, essentially. One final point is about the huge opportunity for automation to drive efficiency, effectiveness, and improved user experience. So we've invested a lot in test automation, so reducing the cycle time for verifying and deploying our changes by up to 90%. We can run overnight a series of broad regression tests that help us verify updates to the system. We've also been utilizing robotic process automation initially just for account provisioning and system monitoring, but now we're looking more at automating other areas of the business process with respect to change management and other areas. So that's a brief overview of some of the areas where J&J is working to get our house in order. So thank you, and back over to you, Jeff.
All right, Jeff and John, thank you so much. It's really fascinating to see the framework that you've built and the results that you've been able to implement within change management, particularly in an area that requires a fairly rigorous process to meet the various regulatory needs. So I think this is a really powerful example of how you can build that foundation. So the Toro, we have John Matzing with the Toro company. John, you've been weaving the digital thread to enable broader use of your BOM and product data. Can you tell us how you've gained advantage with this strategy?
Sure, Jeff, thanks for having me here today. We've got a number of current initiatives that I'll get to, and on this slide that you're on now, I wanted to point out that the Toro company is really a collection of brands. You can see the brands there listed on the slide, and Toro is one of the bigger brands for sure, but it's a collection of brands that we've built over many decades actually, and each of those companies bring a lot of innovation and value to the company overall. When I think of the digital thread, I think back 25 years when we transitioned from 2D modeling to 3D modeling with PTC and Pro Engineer in the mid 90s. And the intention at that point wasn't to just use those solid models to make nice drawings, it was to use the models. And it was a little slow to start with. Certainly we used the solid models to help with finite element analysis. And pretty quickly we got into the lightweight viewing with product view initially, and then it was renamed to Creo view. And then that was our first foray really into using the models outside of engineering. But it really wasn't until, oh boy, it almost feels like 10 years ago, but when we started dabbling in virtual reality, and we started using the models to show people outside of engineering what we had, and to really try to incubate that virtual reality technology. And people were amazed that we had these models. And I was like, we've had this cake for years. We've had this cake for 20 years almost, or 15 years, but no one really wanted to eat the cake until we put some icing on it. And the icing was this virtual reality and augmented reality. And that kind of really, in a sense, opened the door to using the models in a more broad sense. And it was, my final point there on the timeline, it was interesting how a lot of engineering people didn't see a big deal with it because they were used to looking at models in CAD, but it was really the people outside of engineering that really benefited from seeing these models in, whether it was virtual reality or even Creo view. We experimented with 3D glasses in Creo view for a while. But to some of our current initiatives, though, we are the flagship one really is building a system to create and leverage digital work instructions for our assembly operations. And that's really a multifaceted project that's driving some other things that are needed for it, in particular BOM management in Windchill. We have not managed our BOMs in Windchill to this point, but that's kind of a prerequisite foundational piece for our digital work construction project. And so that's a parallel project we're doing on the engineering side. The digital work construction system is being built with on top of Windchill and ThingWorks. And then along with that as well, we're also going down the road on 3D PDFs with MBD and MBE. That's in a sense, they're all related. They're all separate, but they all kind of benefit from each other. And at the end, it really drives the CAD models to be complete and accurate. Despite having Pro Engineer or Creo now for 25 years, it's still a challenge sometimes to have a complete, accurate model. And with more people looking at it through this digital thread, it's circling back and driving completeness, which is a good thing, and it makes the digital thread complete. We're still on our journey for all these projects, and probably will be for a while. It's probably a journey that will never end, and constant improvement and constant refinement, but that's okay. So those are the highlights of how Toro is trying to advance the digital thread.
John, excellent. Thank you so much. And we'll be looking forward to next year when we hear how that next step in the journey has been going. Some pretty exciting initiatives. So let's move on to solar turbines, where let's hear what Eric Horn has been brewing over at Solar Turbines. Solar Turbines has been a journey to leverage digital thread across the enterprise. Eric, can you tell us what Solar is doing across the digital thread and the value that you're seeing?
No, I can definitely do that, and also brewing up some beer in my garage. But the stuff I'm doing at work is probably what you're more interested in.
Well,
So
maybe.
yeah, maybe. So yeah, we started a long time ago with having CAD and BOM management within the system, and so kind of the first step on this was connecting the CAD to the bill of material and getting that visualization published into the BOM. Sharing all that engineering content, and then starting to publish that downstream. That was really kind of the foundation of getting the digital thread going, was all this data in engineering, having a configurable structure and putting in all the sales logic within the system. Then on top of that is now trying to do BOM transformation. And BOM transformation is being done by manufacturing engineers. And now they start utilizing the downstream and to transform the BOM, add their attributes. It could be for plant specific attributes or just attributes that engineering didn't think of, and start adding their value to it. And then now we can take that and now start doing some manufacturing planning. And with manufacturing planning, it also enabled us to embed manufacturing into the engineering teams, because we're doing this up front. Because classically what happens is engineering would do the design, and then they throw it over the wall to manufacturing, and then manufacturing plans it as things are being built on the shop floor. Well, now we're doing this up front to try to save the company time for execution. And so what we also saw was a reduction in quality, or not a reduction in quality, and a reduction of ECRs on the system. So that because we're having the eye on it while you're able to make this, the design change. So now we're able to do parts by operation. We're using the engineering data within the manufacturing planning. The idea is also to start getting the control characteristics into the system, so that now you can start pushing those key characteristics from engineering into the actual plans themselves. And then those characteristics then become data collection and buy-offs within your MES tool. And then so with that, okay, so now you're talking about, okay, we're putting all this data into planning and we need to push this downstream. Well, this also involves making connections to your MES and your ERP system. We've had a lot of connections with ERP. We've slowly started to implement an MES solution. And then so now that allows us to take those process plans that we're creating in NPM Link, push those into MES, and then now you're able to do your shop floor execution using those. We're doing material lists, able to make as-built bills of materials, do costing, all from all the data that we have pushing from the PLM system. What we're trying to look forward toward the future is implementing more IIoT, and also enabling all this stuff also to start marching down our SLM path to also enable all this stuff for the life cycle of the product into service life cycle management. So I know that was a lot of information. And one of my last key takeaways is that through all this transformation, OCM is our biggest challenge. Trying to get the change management into people and to adopt this new technology and make it successful is usually our hardest challenge than actually just implementing the technology portions of it.
All right, thank you, Eric. And that's a huge point for many companies, is that it's not just the technology and the tools, but having that understanding of organizational change management on processes and people. That's really key to making this successful. We've had a great set of overview from Kim with Steelcase, John with Toro, Jeff and John with Johnson & Johnson, and finally Eric with Solar, showing us how they've been able to build value with a BOM-Centric foundation. We've heard examples of improving speeding time to market and helping engineering and manufacturing both work in parallel earlier in the design cycle, about how it's increased collaboration and product quality. We've also heard the importance of planning for those enterprise needs and organizational change management, as well as thinking about it in a way so that you can grow as your needs mature and change over time. So hopefully this gives you some inspiration to continue to strengthen and build your BOM-centric foundation to gain more value out of your PLM solution with PTC. Thank you very much.